Last week, I spoke about how historical Fae lore makes the best setting for a fantasy game. Today, I'm here to chat about how embracing that feel of those horror tales from history can also inspire game mechanics. Most fantasy games have a health mechanic, hit points, a counter of how long a character can survive. I'm here to give a different opinion, one that lends to a more gripping risk versus reward type of mechanic, where players will spend their health to influence the game world. My goal for combat in Folk: your life isn't a counter. It's currency. Every spell you cast, every desperate act of heroism will cost you something. I built Folk because I wanted combat to feel like those old stories, where the characters made choices that had consequences. Not superhero fantasy, not clean, balanced arena fights. I wanted mud, panic. I wanted broken teeth. I wanted splintered shields. I wanted the kind of fight where you can win, but you're probably not surviving it unscathed. Often a fight is epic because you simply survived. But how much more epic is it when you solve a combat condition by outwitting your adversary? In Folk, combat is a story tool, with victories typically requiring characters making personal sacrifices to allow for successes. These, I feel, make for richer stories. At the heart of combat is a single 20-sided die. Your character has 4 core attributes. You have might, which is a measure of strength and stamina. This also influences melee damage. You have agility, which is a combination of dexterity and speed. This also modifies ranged weapon damage. Nerve, this is your charisma and willpower, and it also fuels the anti-magic damage by the Templar class. And mental, a combination of your intelligence and perception. This will also affect the damage done by magical attacks done by witches. When you attempt something, swinging an axe, dodging a spear, wrestling a wolf, you roll a d20, and you want to roll under your stat. Simple and fast for a yes or no result, but sometimes it's not about yes or no. Because in Folk, how well you succeed determines how much damage you know. The difference between your stat score and your roll is your degree of success. This will become your base damage. Let's say your fighter has a might score of 15. He swings his axe and he rolls a 6. So that is both a hit, but that's also a difference of 9 points. That difference becomes your base damage. Now, if you're the one being hit, you have armor, which helps you survive. Armor absorbs damage, with heavier armors adding to your ability to take hits, but at the cost of mobility. You choose whether to be faster and accomplish more per turn, or harder to kill each turn. Speed equals what you can accomplish. Speaking of speed, in Folk, you have action points that you may freely spend each turn, and these action points are modified by your agility score. Combat isn't move, attack, done. Instead, you spend your action points to tactically decide what is best for you that turn. You could move plus strike, strike plus strike, reposition, and assist an ally, all for the same amount of action points. You gain more action points with your rank, with your agility score, and then you will lose them based on the armor that you wear. So heavy armor protects you, but it also slows you down. So every build changes how combat feels. Vitality points are your character's ability to take damage and perform feats. This is modified by your might score. The less vitality points, the less damage or actions you can sustain or perform. Vitality points are lost via taking damage, or you can spend them at a cost of 1 vitality point to perform one of your special class skills. You can expend a vitality point to gain 1 action point for 1 turn, or you can spend it to re-roll any die. This reflects your character pushing past beyond human limits. Let me show you examples. As shapes emerge from the darkness beyond their torchlight, the fighter interposes and spends 1 vitality to activate a class skill to stun an opponent, battering them with his mace. The rogue expends a vitality point to dash away into the shadows so as to be able to deliver a poisoned attack. The witch weaves a spell to turn the ground beneath the target's feet into quicksand, expending 1 vitality to make the change, and then lending another vitality to keep the target trapped, getting that lent vitality back once he drops the spell. So while they are actively spellcasting, witches are even weaker. Vitality points lost can be regained via proper rest, one uninterrupted hour in a well-lit area. By the way, torches last 1 hour. Consuming a day's ration means healing 1 vitality per rank once per day. Or a restoration concoction. This regains D4 vitality points. There is also healing spells at a cost of 1 vitality per 1 vitality point healed. Combat in Folk has the option of using classic battle maps, of course, but for speed, the system embraces the use of zones instead of counting squares. No measuring tape, no arguing over 5 feet, just zones to abstractly represent which targets may be affected. The player casters of magic in Folk are the witches. Witches study one of 5 spheres of magic: dark arts, defense, elementalism, wilds magic, and worm tongue, all of which define the flavor of spells you cast easier than others. Witchers also craft minor magic items and scribe scrolls each dawn. They are capable of magic attacks and defending themselves via their foci, which is a wand, a rod, or a staff, each of which have different bonuses and penalties for causing damage and modifying spellcasting, but at the cost of vitality. Magic spells in Folk aren't spell slots, nor lists of rigid spells. Instead, casting is freeform. It's without levels. You describe what you want and pay the toll by spending vitality, literally the bleeding of your witch blood. Witches may spend time together and form covens, which makes their spellcasting both more powerful and at less of a vitality cost. It's shared amongst the coven. Flavor-wise, they may also perform blood sacrifices to power more intense magics. However, it is exactly for this reason why witches are feared and actively hunted in the game setting. So, play one with this in mind, and of course at your peril. If reduced to 0 or below vitality points, you get to choose. You could survive with a permanent cost, this is known as a coward's life, or you could die a hero's death, fighting on this turn, making a guaranteed single critical success of your choice. And honestly, some of the best stories at my table came from players who chose death, typically turning the tide of an encounter with their demise. If you've ever wanted combat to feel like old folklore, where blood has power and monsters should be feared, welcome to Folk. And remember, mind the woods. So subscribe if you want more on Folk, combat, monsters, magic, and the terrifying folklore that inspired it. And tell me in the comments, would you choose a coward's life or a hero's death?